Hello, everybody. This is the Kubernetes SIG Testing bi-weekly meeting. Today is Tuesday, January 12th, 2021. Happy New Year. This meeting is being publicly recorded and will be posted to YouTube later, where we can all watch ourselves adhere to the Kubernetes Code of Conduct. Basically means don't be a jerk. If you feel like you have a problem with somebody's conduct in this meeting, you are welcome to contact me at spiffxp in all the places, or conduct@kubernetes.io. On today's meeting agenda.
Aaron, excuse me,
yes.
It's not currently being recorded. Do you wish to record it?
It is being recorded to the cloud right now.
Okay, that's interesting because the Zoom record flag isn't on.
I'm not sure if recording to the cloud looks different than looks different for other clients or not, but I can see the little recording option.
Okay, sorry to interrupt.
No, it's all good. So actually, that kind of reminds me, before we jump into the agenda, I feel like there are some new names and faces here. Does anybody want to introduce themselves? Say a little bit about what you, where you're from, why you're interested in SIG testing, what you're hoping to get out of this.
Absolutely, I can start. So this is our second meeting. We attended one, Matt. So I work in Matt's team, Matt Foley. I report to Matt. We're trying to figure out a good way to do our internal integration testing, and also just learn a bit more about figure out a nice way if we can have a good a framework, a testing framework, just to do a lot of integration testing internally. And just try to learn more here and figure out how we can collaborate better and come up with a good plan here. And I'll let Matt talk after this.
I'm Mimi. I'm with Anka and Matt, and I'm on the test automation side and for tools for task automation. And we're at Apple.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Matt, you are muted right now if you were looking to talk.
Yeah, we introduced ourselves a couple of weeks ago. We're with Apple and very interested in being able to test our internal builds of Kubernetes in integration test with the stack of other components.
Gotcha. Well, welcome. Anybody else feel like introducing themselves? I feel like I recognize most everybody else's name. All right, cool. Thanks, everyone. So I'm going to hand it off to Grant to talk about building metrics dashboards for the community's CI. Grant,
hey everyone,
to make you co-host. If you want to share.
Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah. Okay, go for it.
Cool. Thank you. I hope everyone had a good New Year. I'll make this pretty quick. I linked a CL that I had up with the issue in the CL that I had created a while ago in our meeting notes. But a little while ago, I had created just a data studio dashboard based on our BigQuery test metrics and kind of thrown together a quick overview template with just some general things like our commit consistency, how many runs we're doing in CI, and then things that maybe the community cares a little bit more about in CI signals, like these repeated failures where we have jobs that have been repeating consistently for over 1,000 days in a row. Just highlighting some cleanup that we might be able to do and highlighting some of the major flakes we have. And for now, my idea was to, I'm not sure if anybody's gone around the metrics part of our SIG testing repo, but we host just JSON that represents all the metrics. And I was planning to just put this as a flat file in our GCS bucket next to those metrics. And hopefully the whole community can view these. The only things I'd like from the community is really some input on what metrics we'd like to see. I'm not sure if anybody's looked at what metrics we have, but we have information such as flags, commit consistency, build consistency, failures across different time frames. And my plan is to make it so that we can filter by certain spans of time. I know Rob's not in this meeting today, it looks like, and he might have some of the best input. And the other thing is, I guess I might be able to take it offline, but I'm not able to make this public to everyone from my personal account, so I might need to use one of our CNCF accounts. The data is public, but for some reason, internal doesn't allow me to share this from my Google account. But yeah, just kind of a PSA, if anybody has any input on what they'd like to see or what might be helpful, I'd love to know and start culminating some ideas for what the dashboard might look like and what might be most helpful for the community.
So where does the data for all that come from?
All this data is from data sets in our BigQuery table. So for those of you who are not familiar with BigQuery, we have a service called Kettle that kind of scrapes all of our proud job results and uploads build data to our BigQuery database. And we have tables for all the builds, weekly builds and daily builds. And Data Studio has access to all of that data and can kind of like cross-link it to other data and filter based on other data like date spans. And we could say, you know, for a specific build, I want to see certain job stats for the history of this specific job. So there's quite a lot of a lot we can do, and I think I should be able to make it available for anyone to edit. I'm not sure how to do it within the org, so we don't have just everyone on the internet able to change our dashboards. But maybe we can create an editor's list or a file or something, and I can keep it up to date, or we can maybe automate through a Data Studio API who has access.
I'm actually very interested in this project because we're thinking about incorporating some kind of a monitoring as a test in our final integration tests. So, and I will follow the link. Is it the link that you send it to that I can follow link, get more details as the implementation, how we can incorporate it into our test environment?
Sure. I put the link to just a template CL, but I'll also put the link to the issue I created and add some more details on how I'm doing this.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Arnaud, I saw you linked an issue in chat. Did you want to speak to that?
I'm just saying the issue link is kind of relevant to what Grant said. We can migrate those data to a public project and let the community use it for anyone who wants to exploit those data.
Yeah, we do need to do that at some point. But just so it's clear, that data, migrating where the data lives doesn't particularly change things. What I'm trying to say is the data today is publicly accessible. Like literally anybody can query that data the same way literally anybody could go query the GitHub archive, BigQuery data set. It's publicly readable. However, the way BigQuery works is that you need some place to charge the compute time that you use to run the query. You only have to do that after you have queried over, like, I forget if it's a terabyte or a petabyte worth of data. But it is very possible for you to use a free tier Google Cloud account to query that data set without charging any money or anything. But I do agree that we will eventually want to find a way to create like either a shared service account or a group or something so that we could run queries that are larger than the free tier limit and have trusted members of the community not worry about being charged on their personal Google Cloud accounts or what have you. Like I definitely want to make, I guess I'm trying to say, like, if people want to experiment and run queries against this data set today, they can at no cost up to a point, but I want to make people feel more comfortable and more empowered to do so. And the issue you linked is kind of like one step in this process, but totally something we need to do. I guess my only comment for Grant would be that I've been around the project long enough to have seen like we used to have this thing called Velodrome, which exposed many of those same graphs in the same way. And I still feel like we didn't have people actually act based on that data. Like 1,000 days is a really long time for a job to be continuously failing. And it seems like it's right up in front of your face and it's very red, but people seemed to ignore it. And I think that's one of those things that falls in the bucket of like, well, it's the community's responsibility as a whole. So if it's everybody's responsibility, it's nobody's responsibility. I think one way that we've gotten better about driving action on failing jobs or failing tests is when we start looking at them at the like test grid dashboard level. So if you are SIG, like SIG network is going to be responsible for all the dashboards that are within their test grid grouping. And then similarly, like we have a whole team of people called CI Signal who really care about all the jobs that are on the release blocking dashboard. And so I feel like something that's lacking at the moment is that kind of grouping information that would allow us to take the really awesome metrics that we can get out of BigQuery that we can't get out of TestGrid, but allow us to group them in the same way that we do in TestGrid so that maybe a more focused group of people can work on more actionable stuff, I guess.
That's a good idea. I mean, there's nothing that shouldn't preclude us from adding owner data to BigQuery and having like per group data studio dashboards. So that might be pretty nice to have teams be able to edit and build their own dashboards.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I don't know. I guess that's my only comment for now. It looks really great. Like I'm really happy to see that come back. The way that I was using metrics data back in the day was to compute all of the metrics that we use to define whether or not a job should be release blocking or not. So like, what's its failure rate? What's its flake rate? What's its 99th percentile duration? And then we were getting really close to being able to automatically say whether or not a job qualifies to be release blocking or not. And then we could use something similar to say whether or not a job qualifies to be merge blocking or not, based on its health. So I would love to see us get back to that place. Okay, any other questions, comments, concerns for Grant? Okay. Moving on, Antonio, I guess since you sort of grouped all the things together, I'm gonna hand over to you, but you're welcome to hand off to the individual people about the individual image promotion issues.
Okay, so I tried to bump several images yesterday, and I hit different issues. One is I think that's the most important, that is the unhost image, because everybody uses it and it's stuck in version 2.21, I think. But the current version is 2.26. Well, more. So the thing is, I tried to promote in the k8s.io repo, but I cannot get the hash because the hash is not being published because the job is failing. And this is what Claudio was explaining. There is some failure with the architecture S39X.
Yeah, there's some flakiness when it comes to most often from what I saw is on that architecture. Still looking at that, it's kind of hard to find the exact issue and try to fix it. Because whenever I try to pinpoint the issue itself, it always starts working. At the moment, I think a couple of retries will just work eventually if we need the job, if we need the image right now. And I think we can just do that for now. I think we can ping the Kubernetes on-call infra people to rerun the job for us. But eventually we'll have to fix that flakiness at one point. I'm currently looking at it, but for now we can retry the job.
So I think that somebody in the channel is retrying now. Is not able to. Well, if
it might also be a good idea to add more people to the authorization list to retry jobs such as this. So then we don't have to rely on the on-call people to do that for us, in my opinion.
Yes.
I think we previously done this for the Windows Server Core cache image, to which I was the owner of, and I was added there, and I could easily just retry the job. I think the SIG testing chairs could easily be added there, in my opinion, and other people eventually maybe.
Yeah, we could. I feel like I would like to get release engineering as a team capable of retrying all of those jobs. Getting some SIG testing folks in sounds useful. And then Claudio, I feel like you and Antonio and a couple other folks who've been sort of pushing the most on making this transition to using images that are pushed to staging and community owned in E2E tests, you should also have approval. And there's a way to specify all of this. You can specify like a GitHub team name, as well as individual GitHub users. So yeah, you'd mentioned the Windows job. I think that would be a good place to start from, copy paste wise. If it's just flakiness, yeah, I guess retries will help. I don't have enough context to understand what specifically is flaking here, but we can work on that.
My current assumption is that Docker build X in the image might be a bit old. From what I saw, it's in the image, it's 0.4.1, which is almost 1 year old. And the latest version is something like 0.5.1. And it has quite a few changes added to it. So that might be a very good start to try to fix the flakiness, in my opinion. But until then, we can we can retry the jobs until we bump the version as well. Currently looking at that specifically, trying to see if that solves our flakiness. And if it does, I'm gonna send a pull request to the test infra /images/GCB Docker gcloud image, or however it's named. It should be just a one line of change pull request for that.
And just to help me understand, when you're talking about flakiness, is this for a specific image, or is this for all of the image building jobs?
It's flakiness. It flakes whenever it has to run something on a different architecture type. And most often than not, it happens on the S390X architecture, from what I saw.
Okay.
So it doesn't flake on all the images because not all images actually have run commands. And if they do, some of the times it's only for AMD64. And another thing that I've noticed is that most flakes occur whenever it's the APK command being run.
Okay.
So those are my observations for now. And another curious thing that kind of makes it hard to notice is the fact that BuildX kind of deletes its own logs in the console at the very least, which it's not very helpful. So basically, it's gonna run the commands. For example, you're gonna see that it's pulling the APK registries, it's updating them, and so on and so forth. Then it errors out and just deletes them, all the log lines, and just you see nothing, which is really unfortunate.
Yeah, I would say so. Okay.
So yeah, this just basically has to be observed while it's running every single time, and it takes time to fix. But yeah, I'm actively looking on it. That pull request I mentioned also might be helpful for debugging purposes. The one that prints the Docker version and Docker BuildX version into the image building job.
Okay.
And if there's anything else, I'm going to ping the SIG testing people.
Okay.
Yeah. Other than that, currently testing out a fix for the Ecos server image. I'm gonna send a pull request for that soon.
All right, that sounds good.
Okay,
looks like the oh, go ahead, Antonio.
Yeah, related to the image promotion. This is the issues building. The other problem that we have, I don't know if it's SIG testing or the working group for infra, is that the job that promotes the images is failing because it complains about one shot that has moved or something like that. So you can see in no, sorry, that's the that's not the pull request. The pull request is this. That's Claudius. You can see that pull request if you try to change the SHA to promote the image, it complains about one image from AWS that was changed recently. I pinged the guy that updated, but I don't know to whom belongs this.
How did you get the SHA?
Using your README, the
Ah.
manifest, and that's why I realized that unhost wasn't working because I couldn't obtain the SHA. But
Mhm.
for this image, the one image that I have to promote, I got the SHA. I was able to follow the process, and I'm stuck in this job that use the image promoter.
And it seems like the job is complaining about a tag move that is unrelated to the change that you are doing. So the container image promoter is not something I am intimately familiar with. SIG Release has been working to take ownership of that, specifically the release engineering sub-project or the release engineering team. So I would check in with Stephen Augustus, and he can probably redirect you to the most knowledgeable person to troubleshoot.
Okay.
It could be like some Kate's infra permission related stuff, but it's my intent that the release engineering folks kind of drive that troubleshooting process.
Yeah, that's cool. I will talk with Stephen and all the release people. Thank you. That's all from my side.
Okay.
Yeah, the same image promotion process that Antonio used was the same one I used when I promoted the Magnost image 221.
Okay.
So it should be fine. So there's definitely something there.
Okay. And then I noticed, I'm guessing it's Stephen Haywood had added an issue about trying to bump Agnos to the most recent version, and Cloud, you commented on his PR. Is this something you think you can help him troubleshoot?
Yeah, I have no idea where he found that image because the image builder job failed. So there shouldn't be any 226 image. And I tried to pull it. There's no image like that.
Yeah, it was a bit of a new year. What's your blooper? I found some of the stuff from the GCP list of all the various test images. It was in the process of looking at another particular conformance job that we're working on at the moment. So I was misinterpreting some stuff from the Slack messages over the Christmas break and New Year period, and what I thought was actually available. So I didn't notice the fact that the Windows images weren't on the list. So yeah, it was never going to work. So my bad. But a manual push of the image would be extremely helpful.
I'm not exactly sure I caught that. I'm sorry. How come there were no Windows images? Because if you're using Docker BuildX, you build them automatically anyways and publish them. So I'm curious about that.
I'll see if I can just track down the URL that showed the list of the various images that were already built, and it didn't show any of the Windows ones built, but it was still showing this S390, but I realized that the process is just not working at the moment. So yeah, it's not really a problem at the moment, other than hopefully just getting a manual push to the image would be very helpful.
So I don't I'd rather have CI build and push images going forward instead of a human manually pushing it. So this is a matter of needing to retry a job or trigger a new instance of a job. We can go that route. But I guess I want to take kind of a step back for a second, because I feel like we've been talking about a bunch of specific instances of image building and image promotion, and I'm feeling a lot of uncertainty or lack of clarity in where we are with regard to building and promotion of images that are used in Kubernetes end-to-end tests. So about a year ago, I know for certain that all of the images that were used in Kubernetes end-to-end tests lived inside of a google.com owned GCR repository called Kubernetes E2E test images. And it was the bad old days. Only Googlers could push updates to those images. They had to manually do it by running commands from their laptops or their developer machines. And so people had to manually bug Googlers. And then I feel like where we pushed over the course of the last year was so that anytime anybody made a change to an image, it would get automatically built by a proud job. There was a proud job for every single image, and that proud job would be responsible for building the image on Google Cloud Build, and then pushing that image to a staging repository that was not google.com owned. And then the work we had not completed last year was actually ensuring that we've pushed every single test image over to the CNCF owned repositories, and that we're actually using all of the CNCF owned images instead of the google.com owned images. And it's feeling a little bit like we're still in the transition state, and we're trying to debug this with specific images. Like you each have itches to scratch, be that conformance or network testing or whatever, but nobody's actually gone through and made sure that the whole image promotion process for end-to-end test images is working as expected. I may have totally mischaracterized things, and I also feel like I'm talking a lot. Did any of that make sense? Okay, cool. So here's what I'm suggesting. I feel like Stephen, Antonio, Claudia, the three of you, like you're doing awesome work. You are pushing us forward in making sure that end-to-end test images are actually being built and pushed and promoted the correct way. I think we're still working on that workflow. Keep doing what you're doing. But I feel like we opened an issue last year that was about like making sure this is done for all the end-to-end test images. Like I think we need to like re-trigger a build job for all of the images, something like that. So I will go find that issue and make sure that that's something we discuss at the next SIG testing meeting. Like as SIG testing, I want to make sure we commit to all of the images that are used in E2E testing should live in community-owned infrastructure, because I don't think they do right now. I think y'all are individually working on that for specific images, but not all the images. And I would love to get the community's help in doing that for all the images. I think it's going to be a matter of just like finding the checklist and going through image by image and making sure they all work. And yeah, I feel like there is similar work to be done for all of the images that we have been pulling from Docker Hub. And we had talked about maybe moving some of those to their own repository. So I will make sure that by next SIG testing meeting that issue is teed up as a help wanted issue, and anybody who wants to help with that work can help out. But at the moment, I feel like Antonio, Steven, and Claudio are the most knowledgeable individuals. If people want to contact them to figure out how they can help with all this. Does that make sense?
I think that Claudio has a PR just for doing that.
Yeah, I have a pull request just for the Docker Hub images. I've also written it as the last point in the Google Doc.
Yes.
So the thing, your point is right. The thing is, I think that we should decide we are going to work this week on this, because I had the feeling that we are going back and forth with the images thing, and no, we
Yes.
are not. I mean, I do some stuff 1 week, other others. I think that if we align in 1 or 2 weeks and we ask for help, we can have this done.
I agree. I feel like we can get this done via an umbrella issue. If I have to go write a KEP, I will. But I'd really rather just make sure we've got the plan somewhere and then we all run through it. So I will work on that. Claudio, yes, you did have PR. I thought that my co-chair had some problems with it. It seems like maybe not. I'm gonna check in with them, and I will get back to you if there are still any concerns. Because it seems like, yeah, if we could just push that forward, that would be great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the jobs should work out of the box because they are just no-op Docker files, so they can easily be promoted afterwards.
Okay. Any other questions related to Kubernetes end-to-end test images? Okay. Thank you all for going through all that in such great detail. We don't have anything else on our agenda, so I'm happy to release you all and give you 20 minutes of your lives back. I did want to say one thing real quick, which is I mentioned the KEP word. There are some KEPs that SIG testing needs to author and will be pushing for this release. I know that at least one of them is related to forward progress on some of the CI policy issues that we worked on last year. So we had stated that like all of the release blocking and all of the release informing jobs need to run on community-owned infrastructure. They can't run on google.com owned infrastructure. And we have basically done all of that. Definitely a shout out to Arno, who's here for helping with a lot of the Bazel build and Bazel test related jobs. The really tricky, finicky thing now is that there's a lot of code in the wild that refers to CI artifacts that live in a bucket called Kubernetes release dev. And that's a google.com owned bucket. And we need to get the project and the community and the ecosystem as a whole to pull CI artifacts from community-owned buckets called Kate's release dev. And this is a preview of something we're going to have to go through for release artifacts as well. So like anybody who downloads from Kubernetes Relief or anybody who uses the dl.kates.io short URL, we're going to be working to transition all of that to a community-owned bucket so that the community pays for that hosting and bandwidth cost rather than Google. So it's involved enough. I started using the code search cs.kates.io to look at all of the places this stuff was referenced just within the project itself. And there's a lot of little stuff that's going to need to be taken care of. So I plan on putting together a KEP for that, and I would really appreciate folks' review on all this. They are not here at the moment, but one of the things this affects is projects that use kubeadm, which most of the cluster API projects use. Those end up using images that are built by CI, which also live in a Google-owned bucket. And we need to transition kubeadm as a whole to download from another bucket. Anyway, it's far enough reaching that I'm going to make sure we get out of CAP, we communicate about this deprecation with the community so that everybody is informed.
I have a question about that.
Yes.
Is it I'm not sure, is it the bucket or the domain that's being deprecated in this case?
It is the bucket.
Okay.
To provide some further context, in the most ideal world possible, I would just transfer ownership of this bucket from Google to the CNCF.
Mm-hmm.
For technical reasons, you cannot transfer buckets between projects like that, let alone projects that are in different Google Cloud organizations. You can transfer projects across organizations, but unfortunately, the project in which these buckets are hosted also has a lot of internal Google stuff, and therefore I'm not being allowed to transfer the project as a whole. So it's going to have to be a migration, and there are URLs that have like the bucket name baked into them. There are not many paths by which people use some like redirector URL to get CI artifacts or CI images. Most people reference the bucket name directly.
And the bucket name will change, which will cause some URLs to change.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay. I really appreciate everybody's time. I look forward to seeing you all again in 2 weeks. And happy Tuesday. Take care all.
Right.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.
Hey, thanks.